If it's good for college sports. What is up? This is Couz. I'm here with my co-host Jonathan Martin as we talk about West Virginia Mountaineer football and basketball tonight in this 32nd edition of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. Jonathan, what's up, man?
What's going on, Couz? I tell you, I feel like every week when we end our show, we say, well, what are we going to talk about next week? And sure as the world in the landscape of sports across the board, not just West Virginia, my goodness, we find room to fill a show, don't we?
We do, man. We do. And we are live tonight. We normally pre-record this, but I haven't done a show in a couple days. And I thought, you know what? Heck with it. Let's do it live. So for those of you joining us on X, I really appreciate it. Please come over to YouTube after the show. Check out the YouTube videos over there at Couz's Corner. But I thank you for watching, regardless of where you're watching at. Please be sure you give us a thumbs up throughout the video and let us know you like what we're doing here and drop a comment, and we'll try to get to it. If you want to make sure we see your comment, you can drop a super chat by hitting the $sign near the chat box. It'll highlight the comment, and I'll be sure to Jonathan and I will be sure to address it. Before we get too deep, though, we got a lot of portals talk to discuss tonight, as well as the folks in Green down south are stirring up a little bit of controversy. We'll talk about that as well. But first, let's give a quick shout-out to the channel sponsor.
Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians, because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com.
All right, thank you for being patient. Letting us get through the housekeeping. Let's get right to it, Jonathan. Let's go ahead and pull up the first topic of the show. Let's talk about the possibility. Now, again, this is not a report. Right now it's kind of a rumor. Jeff Goodman did talk about it on his show, Field of 68. The popular burner account, Trilly Donovan, who breaks a lot of college basketball news, has talked about it. But it looks like West Virginia's in the mix for one of the top scorers in the transfer portal, Treysen Eaglestaff from North Dakota State. What were your initial thoughts when you first heard that rumor floating around earlier today?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people coming into the portal originally, he was a huge prospect. What would have been a huge addition for anybody, and then committed to South Carolina, and so things kind of got quiet for a little bit, and then all of a sudden today, the reports coming out that potentially going to West Virginia. I think it's worth noting, if you want to just kind of compare what type of player we're talking about here, there were some major programs in line with him when he elected to go or commit originally to South Carolina. Kentucky was involved, Kansas involved, Gonzaga was involved. And as it kind of says on the headline here, almost 19 points a game and put up 40 against Alabama. This kid can score. When I look at this roster that Ross Hodge is putting together, first off, I'll say I like what I see, but I feel like you're missing maybe one key component. And boy, Eaglestaff kind of fits that need, right? Somebody that can come in and get some points and get them in a hurry. And so he fills that for you. Again, this is all kind of a little speculation, I guess, but some pretty notable and reputable sources are saying it. So probably has a little bit more there. But yeah, somebody that I really like, if you can put him with some of the guys that have already came in. Apparently there's a connection there with him and Ross Hodge. Don't quite know what the ins and outs of that are, but obviously when you're battling out Kansas and Gonzaga and Kentucky and South Carolina, there's a need here and somebody that would be a nice addition as Ross Hodge comes into year one at West Virginia.
Yep, absolutely. It would be huge. I mean, you put him alongside of Honor Huff, who we'll talk about in a minute. And I mean, the scoring that those two guys can give you. And then with Jasper Floyd at the point guard spot, who we'll talk about as well in a minute. I mean, I really like the pieces. To to me, I said it on a show previously, maybe even been with you. It's like they're putting a puzzle together, right? He started off with the centerpiece, literally being the center, the 7-footer, right? Bioha. Then you added a long forward with length who can play above the rim and play defense. Then you go out and you add pieces around that. I mean, I really like their methodology here. And DeVries kind of started building with guards first and then tried to get a big man late. And to be honest with you, they tried on several and missed. And then they did end up getting Andre, but I think they were going after some more. They wanted 1 or 2 more bigs and weren't able to get them. So Hodge is kind of going the opposite approach. He went and got a big man first, and then he's going to build around that. What do you think about that approach?
Yeah, I think if anything, I think a lot of people in West Virginia land kind of look back at last season, even though it's a little bit different. And just you saw the need as the season went on, the need for the big man. So I love the fact that he established that early. Mm-hmm. I will say that I do think, and it is early in this roster reconstruction, so want to be a little bit careful here and give the benefit of the doubt. But I think that, and Ross Hodge knows this. You're going to want to continue to add some depth pieces with size, especially battling every week in the Big 12. But so I think they'll continue to do that. So I love the philosophy there. Mm-hmm. For me, though, when I think of Eaglestaff, one of the things that really jumped out at me, Couz, is he was like a 36% three-point shooter, shot about 7 or just over 7 threes a game.
Yeah.
So we know that Hodge is going to bring a defensive mentality.
Right.
But he's not necessarily foregoing the scoring part of it either. And you take somebody like Eaglestaff who can put points up in a hurry and combine him with, say, Honor Huff, that we've seen the highlight tapes on what he can do. It gets pretty exciting to see offensively what West Virginia could do because it looked like everything was trending defensively under Hodge and what we know from him previously, right? So I like that aspect, but I do think with Jackson Fields in the molds, and I think with with Harlan, they're going to have to continue to add pieces there. But I like so far how this roster is kind of constructing itself.
Yeah, agreed. I was trying to find. I thought Jeff Goodman. He said it on a show today. It wasn't on X. He did say. I think he said it on his show. But Jeff Goodman did say that he thinks West Virginia is in the lead right now for Eaglestaff. So I mean,
Jeff Goodman on the Field of 68 stream, mm-hmm. Which Jeff does. Yeah, he did note that you never know in this day and age that Kentucky could come in and throw a lot of cash. But if he was a betting man, I think that was the term he used. Yeah. If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on West Virginia.
And interestingly enough, there was a picture that popped up today during all this. Apparently he was working out yesterday or last night with Toby Okani of West Virginia. So, and then Toby puts out a video earlier, which I haven't had a chance to watch yet. Somebody sent it to me, saying goodbye to West Virginia. So, Toby Okani, I think, is going to have good things to say about the Mountaineer program and may even be trying to recruit Eaglestaff to West Virginia, which would be really cool that he's that bought in, even though his coach left and it didn't probably end the way he wanted it to. So let's hope that's what's happening here. But there are a lot of good signs pointing in West Virginia's direction. I just don't want to get my hopes up too high yet. But it's definitely a possibility, and it would be a huge get for when you can, like you said earlier, when you can get a guy away from Kentucky and Kansas and Gonzaga and the big name brands of college basketball. And you're doing something.
And I would just caution everybody too. Maybe the likelihood of it occurring twice is less than just the one time. But in the world that we are in now with the portal and with NIL, keep in mind this was a young man in Eaglestaff that got into the portal. He committed to South Carolina. And then immediately backed out of that, or not immediately, but relatively quick, backed out of that. So until he signed, you don't really feel good about it. But it is nice to hear Jeff and Trilly and some of those guys who have a strong reputation for being pretty accurate. It is nice to hear them with West Virginia mentioned. So definitely something to keep an eye on. And I'll tell you, Couz, I got to be honest. If Ross Hodge can land Treysen Eaglestaff on this roster. There's still work to do. But he is, if you start checking off the boxes, right, he's got a point guard. He's got a scoring shooting guard. He's got a scoring forward. He's got a couple big men, and I'm including Fields in that, especially with Harlan down that 7-footer down low. Now you're looking to add some pieces, some depth pieces. So you really, when you start to look at this roster, you have to appreciate what Hodge has done so far, and it would just be up to one more level if Eaglestaff happens to wind up in Morgantown.
Agreed. All right. Speaking of additions, they added a point guard in the mix. This one is official. I don't know about official, but it's has been officially announced, but it has been in the media, reported in the media, and that's Jasper Floyd of North Texas, following Ross Hodge to West Virginia. He's a 6'3" point guard, averaged about 9 a game last year at North Texas for the Mean Green. I like this addition, Jonathan. Now he's not going to be he's not the splashy name that you get in a Eaglestaff, with the 18.9 points a game, and not even Honor Huff for that matter, who's hit 300 or over 100 and some 133s. I was trying to think what the number was. Who hit over 133s last year? But you got Jasper Floyd, a guy who's experienced in Ross Hodge's system. He knows how to run the offense and defense. Yeah. He'll know how to run that, what they call a no-middle defense, which, by the way, is very interesting if you ever get a chance to do some research on that. But anyway, he's 6'3", which is a good size for a point guard, right? And, he may not be an immediate scoring threat, but he's a guy who handles the ball a lot and often and effectively. A lot and effectively in that North Texas offense. So what do you think about the addition of Jasper Floyd?
Yeah, well, I feel like this is an old school Golden Blue breakdown show where you and I don't discuss things previously, right, but somehow we wind up on the same points. Yeah, so the first thought I had is just the familiarity with Ross Hodge in North Texas. This is somebody that's going to come in and he's not going to be taught a new scheme. He's actually going to be a leader on the floor. And hey, we talked about this, I think it was last episode, what Floyd would mean. And one of the things that we discussed was on the floor, this is somebody that can help Ross Hodge in terms of what we can orchestrate and how we can kind of teach other new guys the philosophy and the scheme and things like that. So the first thought is just that he kind of knows what's going on. The second was 6'3", stands out. It has to, right? Size is huge, especially in the Big 12 conference. So it's nice to see him in the Big 12. He's going to be going up weekly against guys that are 6'3", 6'4", and to be able to compare size-wise to those guys is a huge benefit. And it also just say that, at 9 points a game, the way this roster is working itself out, he doesn't necessarily need to score 15 to 18 points a night.
Exactly.
So that's it's putting pieces into place. And I guess finally I'd say I went back whenever it was kind of rumored that he was going to be following Hodge to West Virginia. And then finally when they announced his commitment, I went back and watched some videos. And one thing that really caught my attention was before the season last year, you know how ESPN always does this walk the floor and they ask questions with the player. Mm-hmm. North Texas kind of did one of the things that was similar. And they asked him what his goals were. And he said, lead the nation. I think it was the nation in assists. He didn't say I wanted to score 20 a game. He didn't say I wanted to hit X amount of threes. He said I want to lead the nation in assists. There was one more thing he mentioned. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I know assists jumped out to me.
Yeah.
So a floor general, a leader, and if you can put Huff and an Eaglestaff on the wings on the perimeter with Jasper Floyd, again, all of a sudden this roster starts looking pretty good, and you've got a 6'3" point guard who can help facilitate.
Yep. Yeah, and he averaged 4 assists a game, and 1.3 steals a game. So you've got somebody that you can put at the top of that defense to guard the ball and do it effectively, get steals. Yeah. And he's really, really good with the ball in his hands. Like I said, he's not an elite shooter. He is good at making tough shots.
Yeah.
But he's not a guy you're going to look at, like you said, to score 15 a night. But if he can get you 6, 7, 8 a night and dish out 4 or 5 assists a night and get you a steal or 2,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's all you ask for.
And I would encourage you to go watch his highlights. I'll tell you where he gets a lot of his points in the paint because he loves to drive. And hey, who doesn't love a lefty?
That's right, man.
A lefty point guard. I mean, who doesn't love a lefty? So, you're right. He's not living and dying behind the 3-point line. And so if you'll look actually some of the highlights I saw, there were some offensive rebounds in there too. So he's not afraid to get in and mix it up. So, but again, he doesn't have to be somebody the way this roster is shaping up. He doesn't have to be the guy who goes out and gets 15, 18 points a night. That's going to take care of itself, especially if Eaglestaff does indeed sign with West Virginia.
Yeah. Shaq in the house, who's a VIP member on the channel, he says, like, share, and subscribe. 24 likes and 95 people watching. Give these guys a like they deserve. Thank you, Shaq. We appreciate it. Appreciate the love, man. I know we're competing with a lot of other shows tonight, but that's okay. When you put Floyd on the floor with a guy like Eaglestaff, and then if you add Honor Huff in the mix, who is another guy who has officially signed now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, what a combination that would be, right? Huff he's only 5'10", but man, can he shoot the basketball? 130 for 300 and something, 301 maybe, something like that from 3-point range. I mean, absolutely unbelievable score. If you have him and Eaglestaff together, man, it'll be a 3-point. It might just be a 3-point shootout every night, man. I don't know. It'd be fun to watch, though. I can tell you that. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Honor Huff's game?
Yeah, I mean, admittingly, if we're being honest, the 5'10" kind of makes you pause for a second, right? But then you go watch these highlight videos. First off, he's tough as nails. Doesn't appear to be afraid of anything. Most of his highlights are 3-point shots, but he's not afraid to put the ball on the floor and drive. But here's the thing about his size. If you'll look at his videos, boy, he gets that ball off quick, Couz. And so, when North Texas, when West Virginia with Ross Hodge spreads the floor, there's so many North Texas guys coming in.
Yeah.
And they can spread the floor, man, he gets that shot off quick. And then all of a sudden, if you can, and I hate to keep going back to Eaglestaff, but if you can put him on the floor as well, now all of a sudden the defense has got to pay a lot of attention there too. And so it just opens up for Huff. So huge player that they picked up right there, and somebody that can spread the floor. So it is funny, and I alluded to this earlier. When you hear Ross Hodge, you think about defense, and it's not to say that's not going to be priority number one, but all of a sudden you think to yourself, man, we've got some guys that can score the basketball.
Yeah,
and so it's pretty exciting.
And his team's one thing that I think doesn't get noticed enough because of his defense. It is so good, and that's kind of his calling card. Is his team shoot the ball well from 3?
Yeah,
they do shoot it well from 3. They run a slower paced, or at least in the past they have run a slower paced, methodical offense, shooting the ball late in the shot clock. But you know what that means? It means you're shooting a lot of 3-pointers. So you got to have guys that can shoot it, and that's kind of what they do. And by gosh, he's getting guys to do it. But don't just because these guys are scorers don't mean they can't shoot. Don't mean they can't play defense, right? And I think that's something we need to be aware of.
Well, and I don't think that Hodge is going to take a guy unless he feels good about the fact he can play defense. Look, I don't believe Hodge is just looking to take a Huff or an Eaglestaff potentially just because they can get him 20 points a night. If they're giving up 22, it doesn't matter. And if you'll go back and just watch and learn a little bit about Ross Hodge, defense is, again, that's priority number one. So I don't think he's going to sacrifice the defensive side of the ball just to get some points.
Yep, agreed. The other player that got added during the week was Jackson Fields. I drew a blank on the name there for a second.
Yeah,
Jackson Fields from Troy, 6'8", 210-pound forward, averaged about 7.9 points, 4.8 rebounds. Here's what I like about him when you add him with Jasper Floyd. Jasper Floyd is really, really good handling the ball in pick and roll situations. when you watch Jackson Fields' highlights, what's he really good at? He's the roll guy in the pick and roll, and you can feed him the ball off the pick and roll and score in the paint with him. That's what I love about him on the offensive side. And, of course, defensively, he gives you another guy who's long, lengthy, which, again, is really, really important, running that no-middle defense.
Yep.
And he's going to also rebound the ball for you. So I really like this. You know, he's another big, so to speak, that you can add to the mix with Lorian and with Obioha. So, again, just the puzzle pieces fitting together. It's not just going out and finding a bunch of good players. It's going out and finding a bunch of good players who fit and each have a role on the team.
Yep.
And you can gel with the other guys and what they do well. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like about what he's doing here. What are your thoughts on Fields?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Lorian. He's just athletic. Who's 6'8", 210, and there are some reports that may be even bigger than 6'8". But I'll tell you what really intrigues me by him. He started 33 of 34 games last year. So somebody that's getting a lot of court action, kind of a veteran guy, almost 8 points, 5 rebounds, and shot almost 50% from the field, Couz. So his shot selection is good. If you can get up to almost 50% from the field, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But you look at somebody, again, 33 of 34 starts. It's somebody that's comfortable being on the floor, familiar in-game situations. And when I look at somebody that is, when you're putting this roster together and it's year one, Jackson Fields is a guy that I want on my team. Yep. He's a little bit of do-it-everything. He's going to play some defense. He's going to rebound. He shoots the ball well. So, yeah, he's somebody – almost kind of reminds you of a little bit of a Toby O'Connie, actually, in a way. Kind of similar. And so just somebody that's got a little bit of a veteran presence out there. And I think he's a nice addition to the team.
Yep, I like it. Shaq, by the way, I forgot to address earlier – for those of you listening on podcasts, because this will be on podcast as well, we are addressing comments in the chat from YouTube. Shaq says, I've watched every channel tonight. Got to show you guys some love. Thank you, Shaq. We appreciate it, man. And we have a super chat that came in as well from Mark Painter. Says, good show tonight. Mark, man, we always appreciate your support. You're always there to support what we're doing, man, and we appreciate it. And Jacob Yoho says, don't forget Tomas, but I'm not sure who he's referring to. Jonathan?
I'm not sure.
Maybe I was going to say maybe.
Okay.
He's talking about the Bulls teams. Maybe.
No, I think he's. He's talking about DJ Thomas, the freshman. Yes.
Oh, Thomas, my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, he just clarified it. All right.
Yeah, DJ Thomas was actually going to North Texas. Going to be a true freshman. Again, 6'7". 205, 210, athletic wing, playing at one of the most premier high school basketball teams in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. This guy's a winner, absolute winner. And once there was the change at North Texas, he decided to follow Hodge to West Virginia. Yeah, DJ Thomas. Again, I don't know what the role will be next year, but I'm sure Hodge felt strong enough to bring him to North Texas. And then he felt strong enough to bring him to Morgantown. So just somebody that's a winner. Again, one of the premier high schools in Texas. Somebody that's a very solid piece who has a connection to Hodge.
Yep, agreed. And Mark Painter, you're exactly right. He says, good show, mates. Cross fingers about the young guys, just like this staff. Kids are always mesmerized with the next step. Familiarity with Hodge is a terrific sign. Yeah, it's going to help you. Them having to adjust to playing at a higher level, that familiarity that some of these guys are going to have with him is definitely going to help. And what I like about we keep coming back to Eaglestaff, but if they're able to get him, he obviously the fact that he scored 40 against Alabama, a team who made it to the final or to the Elite Eight, that shows you he's not going to be scared of the moment, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I like somebody's comment up here that I missed earlier. It says Final Four is possible if the Eagle lands. I knew there was going to be an Eagle is landing. I've already got my thumbnail picked out if he commits, man. The Eagle has landed. I mean, it writes itself.
The possibilities we could go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. That's great. Yeah, I woke up this morning and did a little bit of traveling, and finally got to the office, and I just saw a bunch of Eagle stuff. I'm like, oh, here we go. So yeah, it does. It writes itself.
I'll be one of about 50 West Virginia creators that uses the same thumbnail, probably. But anyway, and then I'll get accused of copying somebody.
Yeah, well, but with the name like Eaglestaff, again, kind of fits, right?
Yeah, it is. It does. Shax also says, I feel like Hodge is building more already than the DeSlees even thought about doing.
Well, that name kind of writes itself too.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother conversation.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't even forget, Braden Hawthorne's another one that they're still looking to try to bring back into the fold.
Yeah.
If they can get him back in the fold, man, that would be – I think that kid's going to be able to play day one. I think he's that good.
I'm all in. And I even said on this show last week that don't shut the door on that I was told there was a possibility. And then it came out that he actually visited. I still think there's a couple programs you got to keep an eye on, Kentucky being one with Hawthorne. They've only got about 2 more spots to fill on the roster. So we'll see where they go. They just missed out on somebody today that actually went to Indiana. Kentucky.
Kentucky. The Connerway?
No, it was I think it was Wilkinson maybe.
Okay.
I'd have to look, but they missed out.
Yeah,
so Kentucky does have a spot there. And then obviously Virginia Tech, Chester Frazier and Hawthorne have a very, very close relationship. But it should be noted that Braden Hawthorne loves West Virginia. And Ross Hodge felt enough good there to bring him. But you got to keep an eye on Kentucky, and you have to keep an eye on Virginia Tech. We'll see how serious Kentucky is. Again, they're probably a little more serious today after missing out on a player or two. So
especially if they miss on the Eaglestaff.
Yeah.
I mean that's how crazy this is. You sign one player or get a commitment from one player, it could actually hurt you in getting another one. So these coaches have to really – there has to be a strategy when they go in, and they got to make sure that this is a guy they really want, because if you get this guy, it might mean you don't get this guy, right? So if you give up one guy to get another one, you better make sure he's the one you want,
Yeah, and Lamar Wilkerson was the one I was thinking about, Couz. Yeah, everybody felt like he was dead set on going to Kentucky. Ended up going to Indiana, and so I'm sure Kentucky's a little bit more interested tonight in Hawthorne than maybe they were yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And Curtis D316 in the chat says Miles Shea or Chi, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, is intriguing. Curtis D, just full disclosure, I've seen the name obviously pop up multiple times, but I have not done any research on him. So I don't know anything about his game. Jonathan, I'm not sure if you have or not yet, but
yeah, I've seen him mention not a ton. I'm not sure that's somewhere West Virginia will go. Could be wrong here, but with Floyd Huff and if you can land Eaglestaff, we'll see. Yeah. A lot of it's going to depend on how much of maybe a depth piece he would like to be versus kind of the guy. So, but a name I've seen mentioned a lot.
Yep. H. Bar Farkle, who's a channel member, says, with all of the commits these coaches have made in both basketball and football, I can see WVU getting back to our dominance in both sports. Let's hope so. Man. I haven't really seen a ton of commits added in football, at least not this cycle. I'm sure there will be. I mean, the portal just opened today for football, so we'll see some for sure.
And let me follow up on that comment right there. Let me ask you a question. This is something that I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day, and so I'd ask you this question. When was the last time you were maybe this you've seen this level of, I don't know if excitement's the right word, but intrigue across all of West Virginia? Yeah, I mean, you look, Ross Hodge, I think after DeVries, there's a rejuvenation. With Hodge, he's so far done all the right things, said all the right things. Rich Rod's back in football, to be determined. Baseball. What's going on? Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
women's basketball.
Women, Coach Kellogg, they're killing it in the portal.
Yeah, he's flipping players from SEC schools too.
Yeah. So when you start just running down the list, the interest, the intrigue, the excitement, the anticipation, all across the board, all across the board, it's pretty high right now, and and be a good debate to find out when the last time you felt that good.
Yeah. Jonathan, that's a good. Michelle Weintraub's got a question in the chat. Would you prefer Eaglestaff or Hawthorne if you had to pick one?
So I think it depends. I would say a couple things, Michelle. Number one, probably a little bit of a different player. Eaglestaff's going to be more of a wing scorer. Hawthorne, about 6'9", is going to be that small forward, probably a power forward playing out on the wing. To be honest, if I'm trying to win right now, plugging Eaglestaff into this lineup with this team probably helps you more this year. But I think Braden Hawthorne, and I've said this, Couz, since the day he committed to West Virginia, this kid, he is the real deal. And you've seen him blow up in the circuit since, when he first committed to West Virginia, pretty much nobody really knew who he was. And now he's on the verge of some places say he'd be a 5-star. So I think for West Virginia today, Michelle, I'd go with Eaglestaff just because he gives you the better opportunity to win now. But Braden Hawthorne is a guy, you give me 2 years. I think he is all Big 12 caliber player early. I think he's that good.
Yeah, my fear with Hawthorne though is he'd come and do good for 1 or 2 years and then leave. That's what seems to happen with anytime West Virginia gets a guy that's that good. But again, at least you got him right.
You would think so, but again, I would go back to just saying I'm not predicting that he's going to end up signing with West Virginia. But I said it last week, and I'll say it again: that door is not shut. The kid loves West Virginia, and very rarely, Couz, do you see in today's world with the portal and NIL, is there a coaching change, a player decommits, has a wide range of other options, yet he's still interested in going to said school where he originally committed. It says a lot for Braden Hawthorne. It says a lot for how he feels about West Virginia.
True.
And so, yeah, I've said it from day one, this kid's a star. And if somehow West Virginia can get him this year and the possibility of keeping him down the road, he's a star in the making.
Yep. Agreed, man. Agreed. Jacob Yoho says he knows Grant Hussey, the first baseman for the baseball team. That's awesome. Knows his grandma. Yeah, the baseball team's killing it right now, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've had a lot of people asking me to do shows on them, and there's just not enough time in a day to cover everything I want to cover. But they do deserve their flowers because they are playing excellent baseball right now. Finally got ranked 31-4 on the season, first place in the Big 12.
And went on the road and beat Marshall by stealing home.
Hey, as a fellow, as a former leadoff hitter myself, there was nothing made me feel better than stealing a base.
Yeah,
especially when there were a few times in my high school and little league career where I stole home plate. You talk about an exciting feeling, but to do it and it be the game winner and against Marshall of all teams.
Yeah.
Had to be a great feeling on the road. Had in a field stadium that was paid for by our tax dollars.
Something tells me that was a fun ride back home last night for the guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, just major props to them. And I think one thing about baseball that makes it difficult for coverage is they're playing multiple times a week, it seems. And so, but hey, you know what? The fan support there with what Saban's has done, continuing the growth of that program. And if you've been around Morgantown, the baseball field, they're continuing to build. And it's just really exciting. There's a lot of belief. Now you're starting to get that national attention. So, yeah, good job to them.
And Otto Rader, I will address his comment real quick, and then we'll get back on. We'll start talking some football. But Otto Rader, I don't know what sport you're referring to, but he's asking, how do we see West Virginia in the Big 12 race next year? So let's just go ahead and it's really yet to be determined because the portal is still open in both sports. Until the rosters shape out, I don't really know how to predict it. you don't know what the rosters are going to look like yet. That's my take on it right now. Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, you don't know what the rosters for not just West Virginia but everybody else. I would just say, I really wouldn't even separate at this point Couz football from basketball because they're both going to be going through
a
similar
rebuild.
situations.
Great point.
Just a complete rebuild. I mean, look, this is year 2 in basketball of completely remaking overall this roster.
Mm-hmm.
But then in football, it's year 1 of undoing a complete era of Neil Brown. And so now there's you an argument, which is the tougher feat, but probably football. But yeah, so they're both similar in a lot of ways. I think early on, from what I'm seeing, I really like what Ross Hodge is doing on the basketball. There's not as much of a rebuild because you don't need as many guys. But I've said before, I'll say it again, I'm all in on Rich Rodriguez, and I think you just might have to be a little patient. Some people may not want to hear that for this year. But I think long-term, Rich will have some success.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and it's a good segue to football. There's been a ton of players leave. Transfer portal just opened today, and West Virginia's had like 20-some players or something, maybe more, hit the portal. Jonathan, I think you have a list.
Yeah, I think I counted 34, if I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that a lot of people? I've seen some media, outside media people saying, what's going on in Morgantown, and
yeah.
Even some fans are starting to worry a little bit. Here's my thoughts. Rich Rod told us this was coming because he told us, we got to get the roster trimmed down from 125 to 105, right? There's 20 right there. He also told us there were positions where they needed more depth, so they were going to have to make some moves in the portal, which, okay, you got to make room for those guys, right? So that means that there's more guys that that are going to be leaving. And they put out – there has been lists floating around the internet for a week now since the spring game on guys who were, quote-unquote, on a cut list. And that's not my term. That's the term that's floating around because some of the guys were probably asked to leave, and others I think were probably given a chance to stay but chose to leave.
Yeah.
There are both scenarios there. So I don't know why people are so shocked by this. And I understand that, I guess, outside people who don't follow West Virginia that closely may not have realized that was happening. But, I mean, and I'm not trying to throw shade at any of the players here, but most of them were either freshmen or guys who hadn't played yet much. So and I think we talked about this on last week's show. I mean, heck, it was the title of it, win now.
Yeah.
Rich Rod's trying to win now. And I think he's focusing on bringing guys in who can do that, right? So to see a list of players with a bunch of freshmen on it, even though those guys are mostly are very talented, for whatever reason, he doesn't feel like they're ready to play and win now. So I don't know. I'm just not that. I don't think it's anything to panic about. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is I would recommend folks go back and listen to last week's episode because we did talk, and we're going to kind of reiterate what we talked about, but we really broke that down last week. The power of a headline, Couz, that thing kind of took on. So far, Rich Rod's making a weird impression. First, he kind of went national with banning TikTok dancing, and now he's kind of national in cutting players. But the headline came out today about just the amount of players leaving. And then again, it's probably more on a national level where they didn't have a feel for the program and a feel for what was happening. This is something that's been discussed by our friends at Rivals, at 247, at SI. I mean, we've talked about it. If you followed anything of West Virginia football over the last, gosh, I'd go back probably a month plus that Rich Rod's been talking about this, you knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing. Number two, I would say if you look at the players that are being entering the portal, okay, let's just word it like that. There's a familiar tune with a lot of these. And it's players that potentially could help you down the road but you're not able to. They don't believe that they're going to be able to help them win right now. And Couz, in the world that we live in, people aren't going to be happy. They're not going to be happy with Rich Rod keeping a player and sacrificing possibly winning some games this year because they think X player can help him in 3 years or 2 years. It's just not how it works now.
No.
There's some of these guys, and we've talked about them, that I think another 2 years, 3 years in the program could be great players for West Virginia. And the way it is today, guess what? They may still be that. They may come back to West Virginia. But right now, you're in a win-now situation, and you just don't have time to wait on players to develop. So it's a tough spot. It's a spot that we knew was coming. But it's also hard to blame Rich Rodriguez and his staff because this wasn't of his doing. Rich Rodriguez openly talked about how he hated doing this. He said weeks before he had to make some of these calls that he didn't want to do it. And so I don't fault him. I fault the situation. But it's where we're at in 2025 in college athletics.
Yeah, fans are less patient. Boosters are less patient. Administrations are less patient because of the surroundings, because of conference realignment, is bearing down on everybody. Everybody's trying to scramble to win, to make sure that their future is secure, all those types of things. So it's imperative to win because winning cures all, right? At least that's what they say. And everybody's trying to do that. By the way, I just looked, man, we got 500 people watching between X and between YouTube, man. That's uncanny. I appreciate everybody tuning into the shows.
I've got to say, Couz, it's a lot to keep up with. You know this, so the comments are flying by. But I love John's comment about TikTok dancing should be banned. John, I'm with you, brother. Hey, I don't have a TikTok. I don't have a TikTok, and I don't dance, so I'm okay with both of those. But I thought that was pretty funny. And then William regarding Hawthorne, Woodrow Wilson High School, and Huntington Prep shouldn't be feeders for Virginia Tech or UK. William, preach, man. I agree. And I think that goes back to Hawthorne's love for West Virginia, the fact that he is still interested in West Virginia. So much of it now is relationship based and money based, if we're being honest. So going to have to try and fend off Kentucky and Virginia Tech.
Yep. H. Bar Farkle, channel member, says, I have a feeling that most of these portal moves were players he talked to and suggested they may want to leave. Any leaving on their own likely didn't like our style of play. And I think that's mostly true, H. Bar Farkle. Based on what I was reading on the message boards earlier today, I think there were a few of them. He told them they could stick around. He would give them a chance to stay on the team for now and earn a spot for the fall camp because apparently, there might be, I don't know, or maybe after the fall went portal, I don't know. Anyway, nonetheless, they can stick around and try to earn their spot. And I guess a lot of those players decided they would be better off not taking that chance and going somewhere else, which, to be honest, is probably – for a lot of them will be the right move to make. I mean, they're looking out for their own future.
Yeah.
But so I think there's a little bit of both in there, H. Bar Farkle, to your question or to your comment.
And nothing says they won't be Mountaineers in the future. So, in this world, it's always good to leave on good terms. So, yeah. Jacob, I promise you, brother, if we go 12-0, it may be ugly, but I'll do it right here on this show. You're not going to like it, but if West Virginia goes 12-0, I will dance on the Golden Blue breakdown right here on this show. I promise you.
Sorry, guys, I'm having lighting issues here. I'm in a hotel room tonight, and my my light that I travel with is about to get burned. It's a battery power. It's about to burn out on me, so I apologize. But anyway. You guys don't care. You don't need to see my ugly mug anyways. If you're listening on podcast, I'm sorry I was having lighting issues and my lighting's getting all wacky. But anyway, didn't mean to distract you guys. But no, it's look, if they go 12-0, man, I'm with Jonathan. We might just do a Golden Blue break dance show.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go.
All right. Sticking with football, something popped up today, and before we even talk about it, I'm going to play a clip that Jonathan sent me earlier.
Yeah, and when I saw this, Couz, I thought, man, the timing is perfect that we're having this show tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was something you and I'm sure the comments will be interested in.
Yep. Let me go ahead and throw it on the screen. This is Tony Gibson, Marshall's coach, former West Virginia defensive coordinator, today during an interview.
Now, the only thing I have is
Hold on, let me start it over here.
Now, the only thing I have is I want to play them. I think that'd be great for our state, for our two universities, and keep the money in state. So I'm trying to make a big push at making that happen, but I'm only one voice, but I'm never going to stop.
So you mentioned that. I mean, obviously, trying to get that back would be the first time in well over a decade that's happened. What's the sales pitch with it? I mean, I know you mentioned it's good for the state. That's the obvious. But outside of that, from a scheduling perspective, how would that benefit you all from that standpoint?
Well, it would benefit us from my first game as the head coach at Marshall. We got to go to Athens, Georgia. So that's and not taking anything away from West Virginia, Georgia. I'm not comparing that. But if we're going to play a Power 4 school, let's play our in-state Power 4 where it means something to everybody. Mm-hmm. And more people get involved, all those things. I get it. I was on the other side of this rivalry at WVU. Nobody wanted to play Marshall for a lot of different reasons, and the biggest reason was you didn't want to be the one that lost to Marshall. So that is, but the thing now is they say, well, you only hold 30-some thousand at your stadium, and well, Ohio University only holds 25,000 at their stadium, and WVU's going there. So it doesn't make sense to me on how that can happen, but we can't play a game and again, keep the money here.
All right, Jonathan.
Well,
what do you think, man? What are your thoughts?
All right. So first thing I think, I love Tony Gibson. Boone County, West Virginia guy. I love Tony Gibson. But I would just say it's not surprising to me that he's taken this stance as the head football coach of Marshall University. Have you ever noticed that this, I don't want to call it an argument, but this stance is usually one-sided? And you hear it every couple years. I think the biggest thing that I would let me address this first. I don't think many people are real excited about West Virginia going to Ohio either. And so I realize that's an argument, and I realize that's a talking point to kind of work in your favor. But that schedule was kind of done at a time where schools like West Virginia were trying to benefit some of the smaller schools. That kind of came in and then quickly exited. So it's not something that stuck around very long, and most West Virginia people aren't thrilled about that. There's a part of those that I some of that, but most of it. But one key phrase that I disagree with strongly: means something to everybody. That's not true. I don't think it means something to everybody. In fact, I think there's a lot of people on West Virginia's side specifically that don't give a crap about that game. So I just don't think that argument doesn't hold water to me, that it means something to everybody. I think it means something to everybody on one side, but I don't think it means something. Look, I've said it forever. I just don't think it benefits West Virginia to play the game. I don't think West Virginia is getting anything out of it. It's just my personal opinion. It's not for me.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you, and I've said as much. And maybe the fact that I now have a kid at Marshall is changing the way I view things, okay? I'll admit that. But when I saw that West Virginia was going to Ohio, when I first looked at that a couple years ago, and I looked at that and I went, why? You constantly talked about how you didn't want to play Marshall in Huntington, but you'll go to Ohio. Like it did seem hypocritical a little bit to me.
Yep.
But then I would sit back and think, okay, what are the reasons you travel to a certain way? Recruiting is a piece of it, right? West Virginia doesn't need, no offense to Huntington, West Virginia usually gets the best players from Huntington anyway. They don't get 100% of them, but they get most of them if they want them. Do they not?
Yeah.
So they don't really need to go to Huntington to recruit players from Huntington. And let's just be honest, but you and I are both West Virginia residents. We love our state. There aren't a ton of Power 4 players coming out of West Virginia every year. But guess where there are a ton of Power 4 players? The state of Ohio. So maybe it helps recruiting a little bit. You know, I know Athens, Ohio is not that far across the state line, but it's still Ohio. So that's something to consider. It doesn't help West Virginia at all to play the game, but I do agree with some of the things Tony said. You know, it would be good for the state. And if West Virginia is insistent on playing one G5 team every year, why can it not be Marshall? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Outside of the recruiting, and does the recruiting piece even matter as much now that the transfer portal is in play? So that's an argument to that. So I kind of find myself, Jonathan, to be honest, I kind of find myself in the middle on this topic because I kind of see both sides. I hate it when I do that because I feel like sometimes I need to pick a side.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know that I can pick one on this one anymore.
Yeah, and to show that I'm Fox News here, I'm trying to be fair and balanced. Look, I understand what he's saying too, and I agree with Tony Gibson in this. Nobody wants to be the coach at West Virginia that loses to Marshall. Like, I get it. I get it.
That's kind of a yellow way to think about it, isn't it?
It is, but I don't disagree. If, for example, 5 years from now, if West Virginia lost at Ohio, not many people would talk about it. But 5 years from now, if West Virginia went to Marshall and got beat, I think people would still talk about that. So I understand the aspect of you don't want to be the head coach that loses to Marshall. I get it. But it's also not the first time, Couz. And again, I'll preface by saying, look, I love Tony Gibson. I've met Tony Gibson, know Tony Gibson. I've interacted with him multiple times. Love Tony Gibson.
Yeah.
But if you'll remember when he got hired at Marshall, he also referred to West Virginia as the school up north.
Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, that made me mad.
I do tend to believe, because I do know Tony, that I believe that was kind of said in some good fun, number one. And I also think it was said because, look, he's the head football coach at Marshall, and what's he trying to do? He's trying to rile up that fan base, trying to get that booster support. Coaches say things. I get that. My point being here, Couz, is that this isn't the first time he's kind of, I wouldn't call it taking a shot, but he's poked at the bear a little bit. And what he's trying to do is just rejuvenate that side of the fan base, that side of that part of the state. And so let me ask you this question. If Tony Gibson had got the head coaching job at West Virginia, would he feel the same way?
Probably not. And I think that ties right into Chris's comment here. He says the only reason it makes sense to coach Tony Gibson is because he's coaching there now. Didn't feel that way about the game happening when he was hired DC. Yeah. Yeah.
So if Tony Gibson were hired over Rich Rodriguez, would he sign off on that game? I think he'd have a little bit of a different tune.
Yeah. Ranger Buck even goes a step further and says the only thing that compete with the 2007 pit loss would be a loss to Marshall. Wow.
Oof.
And then got to address this one from channel member TJinx048. He says, maybe an unpopular opinion, and I don't know if there were any, but I'm kind of over the farewell expos from players who didn't do anything significant here and aren't finishing their career here. I used to be in the same camp as you, TJinx048, but now that we're in this new era and sometimes it's the coach's decision for a kid to leave, then I think it's warranted. And since we never know in most cases whether it was the coach's decision or the player's decision, I just kind of take it for what it is. It's them doing the right thing, trying to. You got to realize they're basically going to a job interview now. When you enter the portal, you're entering the job market, so to speak, right? And anything they can do, anything they can put on their resume to whether it helps their character, whether their game film, whatever. And I think that's a big part of this. It's a PR thing to show their next school that, hey, I'll be a good teammate, I'll be a good citizen, I'll do things the right way. I think that's what it is. I understand, and I actually used to agree with you. But again, with this new era, I just think that it's different now. And sometimes a player's asking a kid to leave, and I don't hold it against the kid for saying goodbye when he didn't really want to leave in the first place. Jonathan, what's your take on that?
Yeah, don't have a huge issue with it, and it is worth noting that some of these guys are in-state players,
right?
And so it maybe means a little bit more to them. So yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, just kind of leaving on a good note, because you never know when these guys might find their way back. It's just the world we live in. I mean, we have commitment videos, decommitment videos. I've just learned to just kind of take it for what it is, and it's not that, to me, it's not a big deal. But I just think that's the world we live in, where players like to announce everything.
Yeah,
literally.
Yep, agreed. Polar Bear Hunting says WVU football will go to a bowl this year. Book it. I hope you're right, Polar Bear Hunting. I hope you're right. I think they will too. I'm not going to predict them to be, win the Big 12 or anything, but I do think they will be a bowl team. But, I'll save that for another show down the road when we do our schedule breakdown. But, I mean, again, I wouldn't hate playing Marshall, but I also understand why they don't want to. I mean, it doesn't really benefit them. If you're going to play a group of 5 team, play one that's or not. Yeah, maybe you play one that. Well, first off, I think Ren Baker has made it clear he wants to play those games at home as much as possible.
Yeah.
And if you are going to play one on the road, you probably want to play it somewhere where you can recruit while you're there. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't really need to recruit Huntington, West Virginia, because you're doing that anyway. You know what I mean? So I kind of get it.
Yeah, and it does kind of tie into the old arguments you used to hear that if you beat Marshall, you really didn't win. If you lose, it's it's a lose-lose situation for West Virginia, and I get it.
Yeah.
I should clarify that I'm not opposed to playing it.
But yeah, you just understand why they won't.
But I understand why they don't, and I understand why the argument is traditionally one-sided in terms of Marshall pushing the game.
It's all about revenue now. At the end of the day, every decision Ren Baker makes, for the most part, is tied into how they can earn more revenue, because that's critical, key to surviving now. And I just don't know how you're going to make a ton of revenue playing Marshall if Marshall's going to insist on playing games in Huntington. And like Jonathan said, the game at Ohio was scheduled years ago, before this stuff was as big a deal as it is now.
Yeah,
so
and that West Virginia game at Ohio, Couz, was not. If you'll go back and look at schedules within really the last year or two, there were other Power 4 schools that went on the road to smaller schools to play games. So this wasn't a one-off for West Virginia and Ohio. I know it's a talking point on the Marshall side just because it happens to fall now to where Tony Gibson's there, Rich Rodriguez is at West Virginia. But this was something that came in and then left pretty quick. But a lot of schools, Power 4 schools, are playing these one-off games on the road at some smaller schools. So West Virginia is not alone in that. So it's not like West Virginia just took it upon themselves to play this one game and all of a sudden won't play Marshall. This is something that kind of happened a little bit amongst a lot of different schools. So it's not just a West Virginia thing that they're going to have a tradition now of going to Athens, Ohio, or somewhere like that. So
I'll tell you another thing that made me start looking at the other side of this was when I was interviewing an Oklahoma State person once. They actually do play at Tulsa a lot. They play Tulsa pretty much every year.
Yeah.
And they do I don't know if it's a 2-for-1 or a 1-for-1, but they play them in Tulsa quite often because it's a state thing. They feel like they should be playing their in-state schools. For whatever reason, West Virginia has just never seen it that way. And I'm sure there are reasons for that. And I don't know, at the upper level what those reasons are. But I will tell you this, there is a contingent, not all, but there is a large and loud contingent of the Marshall fan base that absolutely despises anything that related to West Virginia University.
Yeah.
And maybe there are some of those people in high-ranking positions, and West Virginia just doesn't want any part of that. I don't know. Again, I'm speculating, but there's got to be a reason for it, right?
Yeah, because this is something that has superseded head coaches, athletic directors. This has been going on for a while, especially on the West Virginia side, that they've just not seemingly had any interest in the game. So it's probably something a little bit more deeper than just what you see currently inside the football program.
Mm-hmm. Stanley Metz Jr. says, I see why WVU won't play MU, but the argument of it's lose-lose is false, for it goes for any team you play at that level. Unlike playing most teams at that level, it'd be more of a win for both. And then Ranger Buck says, basically in a nutshell, says that Marshall beating West Virginia is going to boost Marshall and help them in recruiting and everything else, where West Virginia beating Marshall is not going to do anything for West Virginia. That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that piece of it. Marshall would get a boost by beating West Virginia, which would actually hurt West Virginia even more, potentially, right? So do you want to allow Marshall to be on your level, even get close to your level, in as far as national perception goes? You know what I mean? Maybe that's a piece of it. I don't know.
Yeah, and Couz, that kind of goes back to what I was saying, where I agreed with Tony Gibson on nobody wants to be the coach at West Virginia who loses to Marshall, because Marshall's going to always prop that win up, right? If West Virginia played Marshall this year and Marshall beat West Virginia, you're not going to hear anything else about it from the from Marshall's side of things. All you're going to hear is we beat West Virginia, we beat West Virginia. But if it's West Virginia beats Marshall, just kind of go by the wayside. You're not going to hear a lot about it. So
Yep. But again, I'm not going to lie. Me having a kid at Marshall, I do have a soft spot for Marshall now. Softer spot than I did before. I'm going to at least one Marshall game a year now because they have parent weekend.
Yep.
And I go spend the weekend with my kid, and go watch a game. So, and Marshall's a good school. It really is. They do a lot of good things at Marshall. They're educating a lot of kids, a lot of West Virginia kids. But this is a football show, and when it comes to football, football, basketball show. When it comes to college sports, Marshall is just not on West Virginia's level, and they probably never will be. And and I think there's probably some jealousy there, in a lot of their eyes, I would say. But I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. Jonathan, anything else you want to talk about before we sign off for the night, man?
Yeah, I don't think so, Couz. I started the show by saying, and I'll end it with saying, and to wonder what next week's going to hold. It seems like every week is something completely different. So we'll see who West Virginia has signed, what football players. There's going to be some talking about cuts, guys going out. There's going to be some visitors coming up. So we're talking about guys going out. There could be some players coming in. So we'll have a lot to talk about next week.
Yep. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. Well, actually, next week, I'll go ahead and I hadn't told you yet. I'm telling you now.
I think you did tell me.
I won't be around next week. I'm actually going to be on vacation. Not sure how much you guys will see of my ugly mug next week. You'll get a break from me for a few days. I may try to make some videos and record them and throw them up while I'm out, but we won't be doing this show next week. I don't think, unless we figure out how to do it on a different day. But Jonathan and I will figure all that out later. And
Couz, now probably would be a good time, since we answered questions tonight, to announce, and it's something that I put out on social media last night.
Yep.
Your new website,
Yep.
We're going to start doing a Q&A, mostly me. I might get your input on a lot of it. So I'd encourage you to get over to your new site, which if you haven't been over there yet, I'd check it out, wvsportschat.com. We're going to start doing a Martin's mailbag over there. So we've answered a lot of questions on video tonight. We're going to do that on the site form as well. We're going to make that a weekly feature. So I think it's something, especially as we get into football season, I think you guys will really enjoy. So
yeah,
been out for that.
Yeah, appreciate you mentioning that. And also, we do have, and I'll put it back up on the screen, we do have the @GB_breakdown_ Twitter handle where you can check us out on Twitter. On that, it's a Twitter account we set up just for this show, the Golden Blue Breakdown Show. If you want to check it out at @GB_breakdown_. You can check Jonathan out on X at Jonathan K. Martin. It's Jonathan with no H in the front, JONATHAN, and then me at Couz206 on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. And, if you want to interact with us, that's a great way to find us. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do it at the website too, at wvsportschat.com. There's a comment section. You can drop a comment. It'll send it right to my email, and I will respond to it. But
Yep.
A lot of good articles over there. I have a few different folks writing articles on the site about basketball, baseball. A lot of stuff on baseball right now. Shauna Rose is doing great baseball coverage for us over there. And then obviously what's going on with the transfer portal and football as well. So go check it out, wvsportschat.com. Couz'sCorner.com will also get you there too if that's easier for you. Either way, it'll take you right to the website and you can check out the work. And it's also a place where you can find the shows. But Jonathan, appreciate you co-hosting with me again this week, man. And I can't wait. I'm already looking forward to the next one, man. I'm sure we'll have plenty of chatter to talk about.
Absolutely.
Everybody have a good night for those who are watching live. And by the way, if you're listening on podcast, don't forget to please follow the podcast, and please, if you like the show, please give us a 5-star review. That really helps us out. And I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but I do have a very big announcement coming in the next couple of weeks. Something I'm excited about, and Jonathan doesn't even know about it yet. I'm going to tell him as soon as we end the show here, but I don't want to, since it's not official yet, I don't want to say a lot about it, but around early May, there's going to be something really cool happening with the show, and I want to so you guys just be on the lookout for an announcement. But nonetheless, thanks for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up button on the video, please. Subscribe to the channel. Good night. Q Country Roads.